What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about that major cliffhanger at the end of episode 4 of season 10 of The Walking Dead. So if you haven't seen it, you don't want to be spoiled on anything, what happens in the comics, and how that might have been adapted into the main television series, then I suggest you click off now, go watch the episode, come back so we can have fun speculating. But with all that being said, let's just jump right into it by kind of explaining what this means in the comic books. So like I said, huge spoilers. Alright, so in the comic books, Negan is freed from the prison by a kid who has kind of a grudge on Rick Grimes, and just because Negan's been locked up for so long, he makes his way out of Alexandria and he ends up with the Whisperers. He thinks that he could survive with the Whisperers, they have a decent setup, and it's something that he can find himself living in until he starts understanding exactly what their entire society is made up of, especially with all the rape and killing and everything that they do. They act like animals, and the one thing we do know about Negan, both in the comic books and in the television show, is that he really does not take to this reality well of non-consent and anything remotely related to that. So one of the things that he does is he gets Alpha alone, ends up cutting off her head and bringing it back to Alexandria, and Rick Grimes is kind of a peace offering. Unfortunately, Beta's the one who finds Alpha, and that's what really kicks off the Whisper War. I don't see a one-to-one comparison. First and foremost, there doesn't really seem to be anyone out there that kind of fits the exact same bill as to why Negan was released as he was in the comic books and the TV show. So who did it? Well, we have a couple of people that are possible here. One is Lydia. I mean, at the very end of the episode, she did say that she was the one who let Negan out, and she puts herself in a cell, and she kind of protects herself because she's kind of given up on the fact of ever living in Alexandria. People are just really being mean to her. I mean, she almost died if it wasn't for Negan during this episode, and she's kind of taking the fall for him escaping, giving him another scapegoat so he can go and be free. And this is really a cool thing about that. One of the things about her relationship, not only with Darrell, but also Negan, is that even though these people are really trying to guide her, she just doesn't feel at home right now, and that she would rather be in a cell instead of living outside with these people who really resent her and desperately want to hurt her because they're just trying to find a scapegoat. She even tells Darrell that you guys act like you're really good and peaceful, but you're all just wearing a mask like her mother does and everybody in the Whisper army. So it's possible that it's her, but one of the reasons that it really can't be is that Darrell said that he was watching her all night and she never left, so she never really did that. And of course that does mean that Darrell probably couldn't have done it either. If he was watching her all night, then he didn't go and release Negan, although it does make a little sense considering Darrell knew that Negan was going to be lynched for everything that happened the previous night. And after the meeting in the council, even though he was Michonne's proxy, it was really up to Gabriel, and he didn't know if Negan was going to be let off the hook, despite the fact that everyone knew that Negan made the right choice. And all of this was just an accident and a huge misunderstanding. So obviously, well, it could be Darrell. If he was watching Lydia all night, I don't really see that being the case. The next two, I think, are way more likely. One, you would really have to think it could be Carol. They've been setting up Carol versus Alpha this entire season. And even though she was in last night's episode, she didn't really have that much going on, kind of keeping to herself. And if Darrell was busy watching Lydia throughout the whole night, it's possible that he wasn't watching Carol, and she snuck downstairs in order to let Negan out and told him where the Whisperers are and kind of sent him on a mission to go kill Alpha as her proxy. That's something that could have possibly happened. In fact, I would like that. The only reason I wouldn't like that is because they've been setting up Carol versus Alpha this entire season. If they just let Negan out to go kill Alpha like he does in the comic books, even if he was sent by Carol to do it, we never really get to see that one-off. They got the stare down in the first episode. Carol took a shot at her in the third episode, and we never get to see these two fight because Alpha's just going to die. I really hope that doesn't happen. I want Carol to be the one to take her down at least at some point. Of course, that does bring up the question, are they even going to kill Alpha in the same way they killed her in the comic books? Because the Alpha in the comic books really wasn't as hardcore as the one in the TV show. We don't even know that much about the Alpha in the comic books as much as we know about her in the TV show, and it would be just such a shame to get rid of her this quick in the season, even if it is by the mid-season finale. So I'm really hoping they change that whole Negan kills Alpha thing. Negan just once again goes out and comes back for his own reasons, and we set up that fight between Carol and Alpha sometime later down the line. Just working this out in my head just a little bit, it does make a lot of sense that Carol would have done this in order to have Negan go out and take out Alpha and get revenge for the death of Henry. I think the last two I want to talk about here, and probably not the ones everyone is thinking about, but I think are interesting nevertheless, are one, Gabriel. Now, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because Gabriel's the one who was kind of undecided, and he was the one who even found out that Negan wasn't in his cell and alerted everybody, so that doesn't really make sense, although he did say he was going to take the night to think. He was the only one undecisive, and he knew that he really couldn't make that choice, especially with everything going on in the relationship that they've been building over the course of these last couple years. So why not, instead of making that hard choice, especially if he believes that this was entirely an accident and Negan has really started to change, why not just not have to make that decision, let Negan out, and leave everyone else to their own devices? That's probably not something that really happened. But in that case, why couldn't it just be Sadiq? One of the things that we saw in this episode is him defending Negan, not really because he believed Negan, but because he thought the focus on Negan diverts a lot of attention away from focusing on the Whispers and what's really important right now to these communities. And one of the things they've been trying to build up this entire season is that Sadiq is suffering from some kind of PTSD-like situation from the events of Season 9, where he was taken along with everybody else and sent as the messenger for the butchery that would become Alpha's border. Based on what they've been doing with his character this entire season, it makes a little bit of sense that he would go out of his way just to release Negan in a desperate attempt to kind of calm the fires of everything else that's going on in this community and try to refocus everyone's attention on the bigger matters at hand. Because if you look at Sadiq's reaction to everyone ganging up around Negan, he obviously correlates this mob mentality to the exact same feeling of his confrontation with the Whispers, and he feels like if Gabriel is going to take the night to think about it, he might have believed that the community would take matters into their own hands, and this would affect his psyche even more. Of course, I'm not really sure that they're going to go this far. They haven't had any real connection between Sadiq and Negan, and even though it might be a great twist, I feel like some of the people mentioned before are better choices. The last one I really want to talk about, and probably one that nobody else is going to be considering, is Aaron. This season in particular has been trying to build Aaron's character as somewhat of a Rick stand-in. Even in last week's episode, as I mentioned, they seem to have been adapting one of the scenes from the comic books a little bit early, with Aaron as a Rick stand-in and Negan in a little house surrounded by walkers throughout the night. And it's not even just that scene of them together. There's been a surprising amount of Aaron in this season, and I've loved almost every second of it. But with the connection between these two characters that we saw in the last episode, and the idea that he's still trying to live with all this death and loss that he's suffered, he might find himself on the fence of, one, trying to calm down the community and give them what they want, but also he might have realized during the course of that night that people can change for the better, and he wanted to show Negan the same kindness that Negan showed him when he protected him all night when he couldn't see. I wouldn't hold my breath for any of the last three because I know the easier answer here would be Carol, but I do think any of the last three would be far more compelling than just the easy choices of Darrell, Lydia, or Carol, because a lot of people would be speculating on those people. Anyway, hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. Also, go down to the description section below, hit that link, and go follow me on Twitter where we can talk about The Walking Dead or anything else I talk about on this channel, because it's so much easier to talk to you guys on there. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. It's been real.